Okay, so now we jump into verse 16. And in verse 16 through 59, you could somehow in your scriptures make a note or bracket these off, show some way to organize your page if you would like. You don't have to, but somehow show that this is Jesus now giving Joseph a repeat of Matthew chapter 24, which is going to be given again later when he does the translation of the New Testament. Joseph Smith, Matthew. So you're going to get Matthew 24, Joseph Smith, Matthew, when he does the JST of Matthew 24, and D&C 45. This is one of the few places where you get a three-peat of a particular block of scripture, and this happens to be one of them. So if you look closely, verse 16 through 24, let me bracket it out this way so that it makes a little more sense for you. 16 through 24 is going to give you the historical context of the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, so what happens is Jesus in Matthew chapter 23, he has a pretty long chapter where he's teaching the people there that the scribes and the Pharisees are hypocrites, those who have been in conflict with him. And if you read Matthew 23, he just keeps going through this long list of things that they're teaching or doing that aren't correct. And then he makes some interesting prophecies, and he leaves the temple, comes to the top of the Mount of Olives, and you can picture this setting with him directly to the east of the temple with the Kidron Valley in between. The Garden of Gethsemane is going to be on the right at the bottom of the hill. And you can picture being with Jesus and his apostles looking across at this giant temple structure, this Temple Mount. And that's when he opens up Matthew 24, which we're now getting in this section, starting in verse 16. And he's describing the destruction that's going to come to the temple. And you'll notice you get prophecies such as verse 18, "Now ye behold this temple which is in Jerusalem, which ye call the house of God, and your enemies say that this house shall never fall." So the disciples' enemies in this context would have been the Sanhedrin and the leaders of the Jews, the chief priests of the people. They say this temple can never fall. Keep in mind, Jewish tradition is it's been 46 years in the construction process, begun by Herod. It's taken 10,000 workers to do this job, 1,000 priests, 1,000 wagons. This is a gargantuan construction project with huge buildings, and the leaders of the people, the chief priests, are saying, this temple can never fall. And Jesus is saying, no, it's going to fall. And verse 20, "This temple which ye now see shall be thrown down, that there shall not be left one stone upon another. And it shall come to pass that this generation of Jews shall not pass away until every desolation which I have told you concerning them shall come to pass." Within 30 years, what's going to happen is Vespasian and Titus are going to come to Jerusalem. The Roman army, with three huge groups, are going to come in and besiege the city of Jerusalem. And starting in 68, it's going to start ramping up. In 69 AD, Vespasian is going to get called out of Jerusalem to go back to Rome to be the emperor, to become the new leader after Nero committed suicide in June of 68. So Vespasian leaves, and he puts his son Titus now in charge of finishing up that campaign against the Jews in Jerusalem, and it's going to culminate and finish in 70 AD. When the Romans finally take this huge temple Mount structure. It's the last hold where the people of the Jews have gathered together. When they finally breach the temple and come in, they're going to literally lay that temple flat. They're going to destroy every building on that Temple Mount. If you go to Jerusalem today, there's actually a place on the southwest corner of the Temple Mount where you can walk. You can walk down underneath what used to be Robinson's Arch, and you can see stones, huge stones that are just in heaps on the ancient street there. They're still there. 2,000 years later, you can see stones that were cast down off of the Temple Mount, and they're sitting there to this day, the prophecy having been fulfilled. Just as a little tangent, a little side note here. This particular chapter of the New Testament, Matthew 24, is one of the reasons why many biblical scholars today will claim that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John had to have been written post 70 AD, because they say, man, all this detail and all of the descriptions of the destruction of Jerusalem under the siege of Vespasian and Titus, it's too specific. There's no way he could have gotten all of this right. Brothers and sisters, one of the claims of the scholarship world today is that there is no such thing as revelation and prophecy. There is no way you can know what happens in the future. And so they'll make a lot of their conclusions based on that major premise, that Jesus couldn't have known all of this. So therefore, all of these scriptures in the New Testament had to have been written after it happened. And they said, yeah, Jesus said this was going to happen and this was going to happen, and now they're telling it as they watched it happen. But as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I think we have a beautiful foundation on which to proclaim to the world that prophecy and revelation and the Spirit of the Lord's power, with not just prophets, but in this case with Jesus himself, is this ability to know exactly what's going to happen in the future. Now, why do I bring that up, and why is that a big deal? Because, brothers and sisters, we don't worship a God who's working his way through time, discovering what's going to happen as things unfold. We worship a God who knows the end from the beginning, who knows everything that is knowable in eternity, and he has a perfect plan laid out for you and me, who are marching our way through time, discovering things as they unfold, but trusting in an infinite God who knows exactly what he's doing. And he's given us prophecies and revelations that are coming in the future. Now watch the transition. Verse 24. So all of this was the destruction that was going to happen within a dispensation, within a generation. Verse 24, this have I told you concerning Jerusalem. And when that day shall come, shall a remnant be scattered among all nations. So now you get this scattering of the Jews out of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And previous to that, clear back in 721, the 10 tribes, 721 BC, the 10 tribes having been scattered.